Welcome to a new season in our lives. We are on a mission to demolish the arguments that have kept us from taking our next step towards true Christian authenticity. Are you ready to tear down those self-protective masks that are holding you back in life, in business, in relationships? It's about mindset, but more specifically, learning to keep our minds set on Christ regardless of circumstance. This is the Mindset School podcast. I'm your host, Peggy Easterling. Let's be real, okay? Are you ready? Let's go.
I'm all about helping women entrepreneurs grow with purpose without compromising their integrity. So today I am excited to introduce you to someone who embodies exactly that. Chaz Wilson, the founder and CEO of Master Networks. We're going to dive deep into his method of strategic action and how it can help you align your business with purpose and serve without losing sight of your character. Chaz, it is such an honor to have you here today.
Oh, thank you. The honor's mine. Pleasure's mine. Peggy, thank you for inviting me to be here. I'm honored to be with you.
I just want to dive right in. And I had heard that your entrepreneurial journey, it started with just $27.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing how this all started for you?
Yeah, I sure will. I'm actually going to go just a little bit before the $27, if that's all right. So, my entrepreneurial bug, if you will, which a lot of you listening probably understand, it feels more like a calling, like you're just called to it than I was really, the truth is I was fairly unemployable. I just didn't like working for other people. But when I was in high school, I write about this in my book, but and when I was in high school, a friend of mine, they still own one of the largest college athletic hat companies in the world. And they lived nearby and they had a warehouse. And so I would go help unpack some boxes on occasion. Just a couple of times I did that. And I would see all these new hats. And so I'd be like, can I have some? Can I get some? And they're like, sure. And then I would wear one to school and a friend would go, that's the coolest, whatever, Penn State hat or University of Minnesota or Texas or whatever. And they're like, how do I get one? Because they're not even in stores yet. And so I'd go back to my buddy and I'd say, hey, my friends all want these. And he's like, here's the thing, I'll let you sell some of these hats. You can't sell them for less than $15 or $10, I think it was, because that's what we wholesale it to the store for. And we sell them for like $30. And so I started to learn for the first time, like margins and all this stuff in high school. And so if you could envision in my locker, I had all these hats hanging in my locker. And it was a great little business till the school found out. They didn't really care for that. I think they wanted in on the deal. But that was my first bug into it. I got the bug of entrepreneurialism. Anyway, I started real estate and I lost a bunch of, I had some real estate companies and I was part owner of seven offices and I lost it all in the kind of the 2009, 2010 hit. So that's a little backstory, but let me tell you about the $27. So I give that context because you have to understand, so I'm married, we have 5 children. And at this stage of life, like many people listening, like it's tough. And I had just lost these 7 real estate companies. I'd stepped away from them kept them afloat. I sold out my interest and I was starting this new company called Master Networks. Now, Peggy, here's what I want you to envision. I had in my office at the moment, I had my mentor, who was my mentor for 9, almost 10 years until he passed away recently, unfortunately. But he's sitting in front of me. He built 3 national companies and he's sitting in my office telling me about this idea that I have Master Networks and how I'm going to take over the world with it, blah, 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 all these things. Meanwhile, my phone's ringing and I'm getting text messages from my wife, like, call me right now. She knows I'm meeting with Dave. Like she knows I'm in this most important meeting probably in my life. And so I'm meeting with Dave and I go outside and I answer the phone. I'm like, yeah, sweetie, what's going on? And she says, I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm like, you're not bothering me. What's going on? So if you envision, so I have 5 kids in 7 years. Youngest 2 are twins. And so she's got 3 little kids in a cart, another cart full of groceries. And she's like, the cart is not working. So I can feel the pain in her voice. I can feel all of that. And I just, I said, let me look it up online and I'll call you right back. And so I looked it up and I had $27. I learned in my mind that image of $27. So again, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I'm on the phone with my wife, $27. I've got Dave in the other room who wants to take over the world. And I can't make sense of these two this decision in front of me of like, and I just told her, I said, get what you can for $27. I'll figure out for tomorrow. And I knew I had to take Dave to dinner that night. And so what I don't often tell in the story, Peggy, for your and you listening, is that I actually had to go in and call my parents and say, can you loan me some money so I can take Dave to dinner tonight? So low, so humbling. And here's the crazy part. That was only like 9 years ago, which maybe seems like a long time. It was not that long ago. And what we've done since then has been amazing. But yeah, I get, maybe you listening, you're having your $27 moment right now in business, and I get it. I hear you, but just understand, let that be part of your story. And that was burned in my mind, Peggy. I just want you to know, that was burned in my mind. This will be part of your story. In that moment, I remember it. I believe in God and driven by that. And I just remember feeling like, don't forget this moment. Don't forget it, which is hard in the moment, right? So yeah, $27, still hard to think about.
You've had to have some mindset shifts, exponential, during just bridging that gap from where you were and to where you are today. How did you navigate that gap? What came next?
So it's such an interesting thing. When you navigate it, there's still some of it that still carries with me. And then I think that's okay. Again, whatever $27 moment somebody's going through, I think it's okay. The debit card readers, when you go to the store and you put your debit card in, back in the day, they used to make this sound. It was when it declined, it would be you get this thing, you're like, oh no, my card's declined. And now I want to take somebody outside that changed it to where when it approves, it still makes that dumb sound. Cause I get the PTSD every time I hear it. I'm like, oh no, my card's not working. And it still says approved. So I realize I still have so much emotional connection to that time of my life. And your question of what did I do next? Here's the interesting thing. I think I just did the next thing constantly. I'm just focused on what's the next thing. We as humans have this fight or flight, but I think there's a third one, that's freeze, right? And I think many entrepreneurs get overwhelmed of their current state and they can't quite see where they need to go. Fortunately, I had a great mentor in my life with Dave who could see it, even if I couldn't, and allowed me to not freeze, right? Just take the next step, just do the next thing. And I think I still continue to do that. What's the next thing I can do that gets me where I need to go, and not focus too far down the road, because I think that gets overwhelming.
Wow, that is so good, because the big picture in that gap, it can be so overwhelming when you're in the space of just starting. And it's important, though, to have those people in your life that believe in you, that believe you can, that will speak into your life. What was it like having a Dave in your life to mentor you and walk through that season with you?
So thank you for asking. And I think everyone needs to find a great mentor. And I've been asked this a lot over the years, and I sometimes I forget to tell us, I did pay Dave. It was a paid relationship, which was okay because that honors the value that I saw him. And what was really cool is he was about twice my age, right? So when he passed away, he was in his mid-70s. And what was fascinating is he could see things in me, but he would also, because of that, he started where I was. I think back to what I paid him early on. It's a little laughable now, but I so value that he met me where I was and created an arrangement that he could grow with me, right? So as we got more and more successful, it paid him really well. But I remember early on, Peggy, asking him one time, and I felt dumb asking, but I just felt like I needed to. I said, Dave, what's in this for you? I get there's a financial thing, but I don't see, I'm getting so much value out of this. I don't see what, say $500 a month or $1,000 a month when we first started, whatever it was. I don't see what's in it for you necessarily. And this was so vulnerable, and I loved it. And I hope I'm not, saying something out of turn, but in a private moment. But one of the things he said to me was, he said two things. He said, I'm at an age where I've accomplished a lot. I mean, he built 3 national brands, names I could say here. And he's written, I think, 7 best-selling books. He accomplished a lot. There are very few companies that would take a 70-year-old and bring them in. And so there was a little bit of that I think he felt, and it's unfortunate because he was so wise. The second thing is he had a son that was about my age with several children that had passed away. And there was a little bit of this, again, I'm not suggesting I stepped into any role but there was a little bit of a father-son kind of thing there, that this bond that he and I had, and it was precious and special to me. And I honor him, but he was so good about not just giving me, and you said something I want to just dig into, finding a mentor that not only just sees things in you can't see, but will call you out when need to be. I mean, there was some times I can think back where I was near tears with some of the, not harsh, I mean, it might have felt harsh at the time, but very direct things. But what I realized is he was preparing me for a national organization, a big company, to run it and be the CEO and be the leader. And he would just like let me know exactly. Sometimes I thought it was the dumbest things I even said to him one time, I'm like, I feel like you're picking on me. He's like, no, I'm preparing you. And I was like, well, it's good, right? So invaluable is a short answer. I gave you a really long answer, but invaluable.
Wow. It's like Mr. Miyagi, just pulling out those things, doing those things in you that don't seem like they're the thing to nitpick in the moment. But in the big picture, they were exactly the thing that was building your character to where you needed it to be who you are today.
Yeah.
So powerful. I want to just kind of pivot here and talk about your book, because I think the core disciplines that you speak to in this book are exactly what we're talking about. Some of the things that need to be pulled out of business owners to really develop these things in them. Do you mind just giving us a high-level view of the book and some of the
absolutely.
things?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's what's cool about it too, because it started with Dave. So this book, 5+1, was my first book. 5 business disciplines and the 1 master skill. And actually, one of my very first meetings with Dave, he was actually on a path to train and teach entrepreneurs, because that's what he'd been doing his whole life. He's really a master at it. And he had these 5 business disciplines and didn't have the master skill piece, but that I added later. But when I started meeting with him and I gave him some suggestions, and they weren't all the 5 T's that they are today, but anyway, we collaborated on it. And he said to me, Chaz, we should write a book together and do this. We should write this book. I said, let's do it. So we started writing, and we got to the first discipline, and he called me up and he said, hey, I'm out. I'm not going to finish this book with you. And I was like, so initially like frustrated and mad and all kinds of emotion. I'm like, we committed to this thing, man. You talk to me all the time about commitment. But then what he said after that is like almost no words if you really think about the value of this. He said, Chaz, this needs to be your book in your voice, because you're going to far outlive this than what I will, which is so interesting to think about today. But he said, you're going to outlive this, and it needs to be your voice, and this legacy needs to be yours, not mine, but I'll guide you and I'll help you through this process. Think about that. So this book's very special to me in that regard. It's 5 business disciplines, all the business disciplines of every business, every tactical skill you can do this. It's the thinking discipline, meaning the mindset, the vision, the plan, the core values, all of that, right? So thinking, targeting, who's my target client? Who's my ideal client? What's the marketing messaging? How am I attracting them? All of that kind of stuff. Then it's thinking, targeting, tracking. What are the numbers, the 7 key numbers I'm tracking? All of the components of a business, the key indicators that I need to track. Then it's timing, not just how I manage my time, but the timing in which I interact, how quickly and timely am I with my clients, and all of those time blocking activities. And then it's team building, meaning leverage. Who do I get to do the thing? How do I hire them? What's the process? And then the master skill is connecting through networking. And I really believe that's a skill. It can be learned, it can be taught. And once it's understood, you understand that it unlocks your path to everybody and everything you need.
So much insight. One of the things that I see women entrepreneurs specifically, especially in their beginnings, they get stuck in that targeting. It's so much crazy how much they need some clarity to hone their ideas, to target that person, and they can stay there for way too long. Do you have just a few high-level tips for women who are in that space currently?
Yeah, I love it. So thank you for asking that, because here's the thing that we understand is that when we have clarity, it's our permission slip to go fast, right? So once clarity comes, and we don't need to hold back. We don't need to hesitate. We need to go. I love this story, by the way. I tell it often when I speak on stages, but I think it's poignant right here. There's a great story of a dad who's driving his son in the canyons of southern Utah, northern Arizona. This is like back in the 50s. So it's pre-cell phones and GPS and all of that stuff. But he's in the canyons and he's driving, and it's starting to get late and they need to get back. And they're in their pickup truck and they start heading back. And you don't want to be stuck in the canyons at night. And they get to this fork in the road. and they don't know which way to go. And the dad kind of stops. He's like, I don't remember this fork when we were, you ever been on a path where you're going, all of a sudden you come back, you're like, I don't remember this little jet off here. Like there's 2 ways to go. And so they stood there for a second. And the son says to the dad, Dad, do you know which way to go? And he says, no, I don't. It's not clear to me which way to go. And he said, so Dad, is it okay if I pray and ask God to tell us which way to go? He's like, sure, we'll get all the help we can get. So he does. And he says, Dad, I think we're supposed to go right. And the dad says, yeah, I think so, son. We're supposed to go right. So they go right, and a quarter mile down the road, it's a dead end. And so they turn around and they're coming back and get on the right road and they're heading back. And the son says to the dad, he says, Dad, why do you think God told us both that we needed to go right when it was a dead end? And he says, son, I don't really know, other than I think God just wanted us to know really quickly it was a dead end. And I think sometimes in business, we see dead ends or mistakes or roadblocks as failure. Instead, if we can look at it as the blessing that it is to know, you know what, that was a dead end and I'm glad I found it out fast. And now I can go this way with clarity, with quickness, with speed, because speed's a great separator. And so I think the mindset piece in this is that it's more just about understanding this is part of the process, that clarity comes as you start taking steps. For us, like I'm 13 years into Master Networks, okay? I think we just figured something out like in the last month. Like for real, 13 years. Think about, I can sit here and go, oh my gosh, look at all the mistakes we made and why we wasted all this time. No, we would have never got where we are had we not tried all of these other things to then go each time learn from it. So I just think for your listeners, just remember that, like, it's okay. Go try something. Just keep trying and don't worry about what anybody says. It does not matter.
So true. Action definitely breeds that clarity that we need to keep moving quickly and to bring more clarity. One of the things on number 5, team building.
Yes.
So I think that can be really hard when you're starting with limited resources. And what would you suggest for someone who's just starting out and they don't have a whole lot of capital and overhead for a team, but they really want to get to that action space and to keep moving along?
Oh, this is like, and I took a deep breath because I'm so passionate about this piece. And I mean, I am all of it, but this piece alone, because it is a game changer. However, I always say speed to leverage, right? I want to get to leverage, meaning I do it, we do it, then they do it, right? So how do I get to that leverage as quickly as possible? Some places I can start are just in my personal life that are not very expensive and don't take a lot of capital. And nowadays it's even easier, right? Just as an example, right? I could get somebody to mow my lawn. I don't need to do that. And then I can free up more time, right? I love the book Dan Martell wrote, Buy Back Your Time. And again, I can Instacart my groceries. I can whatever. I can do things in my personal life that give me back more time. Well, then translate that to business. It doesn't mean necessarily I have to hire a full-time person. I remember our team, one of the things we did when I started was I just reached out to people and said, hey, I need a little help. And I'd get, 4 hours here and 6 hours there. And I would just try to find as much as I could. And we use, and still to this day, we use VAs overseas. Most of our team, I shouldn't say most of our team, a good amount of our team we have people in India, Mexico, and the Philippines. And if I took, and they're the most amazing people, we pay them really well, but if I took all of their salaries and added it up, it's probably 2 people US stateside. And so, but in exchange, we have seven. And the amount of work I get out of those 7 people, they're the most amazing, loyal. I mean, we rarely turn over people. But when I started with the first one, Peggy, blew me away. It was $400 for the month, full time. And she's still with us today. I think it's been 6 years.
Yeah.
So my point is not that hard to get started. You can start with little things. You can also start with automated softwares that can also be money you invest to get you back your time. So leverage is the key, by the way, to running any business. It is the key.
Yeah, there's so many great AI tools out there today to help solopreneurs, new entrepreneurs. It's mind-blowing how quickly that technology is just
so crazy
benefiting people in this space. One of the other things that I've heard you speak on is the bond approach to networking. And I was blown away the first time that I heard it. Can you break that down for us and our listeners and how they can apply it right away?
Yeah, thank you. It's been a decade of tens of thousands of people using this method. And I'm always blown away with the success stories I hear. So I hope that if your listeners took notes on anything or they do, that's on this. But I want to just tell you where it started because I think the context is important because if you're in business long enough, you will have been in this kind of a meeting. If you haven't already, buckle up because it's coming. But it was the worst lunch meeting I'd ever had. And you probably know what I'm talking about, right? It's the idea of like, hey, this awesome young guy, persistent, he was a banker and he kept inviting me to lunch, probably thinking, hey, I started this national company. I need to get him as a client. So persistent. My team's like, just take him to lunch. So I look at my calendar. It's like, I'm supposed to meet this guy at Chipotle. I'm like, okay. So he set it up. I meet him there. I walk through the door. I barely says hello. And he starts talking about cars and this car he's rebuilding. Also, I'm not a car guy. I'm just not a car guy. Get our food. We sit down. He goes, bites in his burrito. He's still talking, food all over. He grabs the hot sauce. So I'll use this bottle. He grabs the hot sauce and he goes to put it on there. And when he sets it on the tray, it leans forward and shoots hot sauce all over me. And I'm just so irritated. But side note, and this is a factual thing. That was the first, I was wearing a suit that day. It was the first day I'd ever worn that custom suit. And I had now hot sauce all over it. Didn't offer to clean it. I got off the table and got napkins. I don't think he knew I left the table. It was like, you know, the feeling where you're like, I'm not hungry anymore. This is the worst thing I've ever been a part of. How fast can I get out of here? And we got up to leave and he looked at me and he said those magic words. He's like, man, this was great. We should do it again sometime. I'm thinking, not on your life, buddy. Not happening. So irritated, so frustrated. Got in my car and I literally had to just like breathe for a minute. I was like, this felt like such a waste of time. And I reflected and I called my team. I said, hey, I'm heading back. Drop everything. There was like 3 of us at the time. So drop everything, get in front of the whiteboard. We're going to codify what I have been doing for years because I never had done it. I just was doing it naturally and I never realized what I was doing. I'll just tell you, it came like a divine download. The acronym for BOND and the understanding of what we're doing came in about 5 minutes. And I had never thought about it this way before. So this is what it is. BOND, it's an acronym. Because I felt bad for this kid. He was told to network like a lot of us are, but no one showed him how to do it. And if you do it, if you follow this, I assure you, you will separate yourself quickly. B is for build on a common interest. It's fairly vague, but there's a skill set in this, and that is understanding how to connect with an individual by whatever you can in common. So if I go to a networking event, hey, just the fact that we're both here together, who invited you? How did you end up here, et cetera? Build on a common interest. And there's no time limit to how long that might take either. Then O is occupation exploration. Because I want you to think about why some of us get turned off of going to networking stuff. Like I've gone to them where it's like the good old boys club. They're like even huddled around the appetizers. You can't even, like they are blocking you from even getting in. And you walk up to somebody and the first thing they says, oh, hey, Peggy, what do you do? It's like, there's no relationship. So build on a common interest. Then you talk about the business, right? Occupation exploration. You could stop right there and you're going to set yourself apart. I promise you. I'd rather go to a networking event and go deep with 3 people than try to collect every card in that room. I promise. So build on a common interest, occupation exploration, then needs discovery. Then, so, hey, Peggy, what are you looking for? What keeps you up at night? What are your competitors doing? What do you see happening in the market with you, your business, et cetera? Then D is develop opportunities. If not for the 2 of us, based on the needs, I probably know somebody that I could send to you and you're going to still see me, if not more valuable, because I just helped you solve a problem that you had. And that's the BOND method. Too many people go into occupation and then try to develop an opportunity and there's no relationship built. Promise you. And I could literally tell your audience stories of me connecting with athletes, NFL, movie stars, billionaires. I've been able to interview billionaires on my podcast a couple of years ago, all through the BOND method. You can connect with anyone you want to by using that BOND method and getting really good at it.
You mentioned that when we were on a call last, that I just asked, what did you need? And you said, people just don't ask me that. And so it just makes me realize I only ask because I genuinely care and I want to be surrounded with those types of people. And you've created that in Master Networks. You've created a space for people to show up who genuinely care about not just their success, but each other's success in a way that they're looking to not just self-promote, they live out this bond method. They find community. They deeply connect with each other. They hang out and create relationships. And you're referring people because you genuinely care about each other's business success, not because someone handed me a card. It's unique.
Well, shout out to you because you used the bond method with me to be able to get this interview, which then I'm like, yeah, I'll do this. I love watching people use, again, it's not a tactic in that it's deceptive in any way because you're like, oh, I know something now about how to connect. No, it's genuine because your authenticity will come through. This just gives you a framework in which to do it in and kind of leads you through a path of where to go next. Otherwise, it's just a conversation, right? It's just, that's fine. But business entrepreneurs, we're busy, we're productive, we have things to do. And so how do you value that time? And so, yeah, shout out to you. You used it and it worked great. And that's why we're here.
I want to ask a personal question. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, you can ask me.
So showing up here in an online space, I feel so empowered. Like I feel so authentic. But sometimes when I walk into a space in person, I sometimes get into that imposter syndrome. It's my own thoughts in my mind, but sometimes when I show up, I feel like they're huddling around the water cooler without me.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think so often we all get into that imposter syndrome space where, number one, you believe in God too. I feel like when we try to get into this space where we are being bigger than who we really are authentically, we take up the space where God belongs. Yet, when we get into this space where we're thinking of ourselves lowly and this imposter syndrome, we don't put our gifts on the table. And so to be completely just human and how we are and showing up where our feet are authentically, sometimes we've got to get beyond our thoughts about people and the water cooler. With that, what would you recommend to a woman walking into one of your networking spaces for the first time?
Oh, okay. So love this question. So good. Thank you. I'm also going to I want to preface and pre-frame this answer though, because as adults, we're no different than kids. And so think about a lot of this comes from I always tell the story, like when we moved from Minnesota to Texas and my kids started school, could tell they were nervous, right? It's new school, but like half the school was new because it's a new development. But I said, what are you nervous about? You know what's fascinating? They were nervous about lunch. Because see, when you go into class, you're told sit here, right? When you go to lunch, it's like you grab your tray, you're looking around like, is anyone going to make eye contact? Are they friendly? Are they smiling? Like, can I sit here? So nerve-wracking. Think about it, networking. You walk in and you're like, is anyone going to make eye contact with me, et cetera? Remember this always dates me too, by the way. Remember the show Cheers? The show Cheers, right? And
yes.
And Norm would walk into the bar, and every time he walked in, everyone stopped what they were doing. They'd yell, Norm, right? Like they'd all yell his name. In fact, the theme song is Go Where Everyone Knows Your Name, right? That's what we all want. We want to walk into a room where somebody's like, Peggy, hey, come on in, that kind of thing. And so the first thing we can do is understand that there's probably other people that are there for the first time. So I sometimes walk into rooms and think I'm the only new person. The reality is there might be lots of new people, but I wouldn't know because I'm new too. So I just treat like everyone like they're a new person and I try to welcome them. But I'm a shy introvert, which is so funny that I own a networking organization, right? But I did it because actually created it because it's a weakness for me. It always was. I was shy growing up and I'm still shy. So what do? I think what you do is you own the space. You walk in with confidence. You walk in with humility, but you walk in with confidence and you just make people feel important. Promise you, if you walk in and you are more interested in trying to connect with somebody there, it will go your way. You will find somebody. And in the rare cases that I've gone into places and I've tried to connect with people and make people, tell me about what you do, et cetera, and I'm all interested in them. In the few times that I've done that and not found any receptiveness, then I realize that is not my group. That is not my people. That is not the people I want to be around. And I withhold judgment. So that's another thing. I'm curiosity lead to the conversation. but I'm equipped with the bond method. So I know I've got a skill set that I can go use and just smile and connect with people. It's really not that challenging. I'm going to give you one example, just came to my mind. I was invited to go because I was thinking about when is the last time I felt like I went into a room that I didn't belong or I was new. And I was invited to a mastermind. This was a $250,000 entry fee, like high level mastermind, okay, annual fee. The people in the room are doing massive business. It's the first time, and I was there by invitation. It's by invitation only. And the first time I was like, I don't know why I'm in this room. And the founder of this group had multiple companies, several worth $1 billion or more. And we got a chance to meet. Well, I did a little research and I knew about him. I knew he had twins. I have twins. He was a state champion wrestler. My boys were wrestling. Like I just knew all the things that I had in common. And so there was kind of a line of people to meet him and I just used Bond. And I was like, hey, it's so nice to meet you. By the way, before we start, I just want to tell you, I think it's cool that as an entrepreneur, what you do with twins, I have twins, twin boys, just like you. And it's such an interesting dynamic. I didn't have to say anything more. He started talking about his twins. He started talking about wrestling. We started talking about we didn't talk business for 10 or 15 minutes. And I could feel everyone in the line behind me like, listen, buddy, pick it up. Let's go. Everyone wants to meet him, and like we made an instant connection and we're still friends to this day, where not everyone in that room became friends because I connected with him as a human first. Just keep in mind, and I know I'm really laboring this answer here, but I just want you to understand that when you meet people, you have to understand most people that you're talking to, if I assume this is the first time you and I met, Peggy, I need to assume that most people that you run into want something from you. If I meet you and I'm not there to want something from you, man, it disarms people so quickly. Because I'll just tell you for myself, most people want something when they're, and I hate to say it, but as entrepreneurs get more and more successful, they get a little bit like standoffish because there's, what does this person want from me? What does this person want from me? What is it? There's not bad, but so if you just connect with them as a human, it's so easy. So easy.
I love that because I feel like when we connect as humans, we're showing up as our best selves anyway.
Yep.
We're bringing our best self to the table and not just as like, it's a gift. It's a gift to offer your best self to that environment. Yes. So if you're a woman and you're listening and you struggle with that, number one, there's a welcoming team that's going to be there to welcome you in and show you where to go. But also just showing up in any environment. And like Chaz said, to take up the space and show it boldly, but to work that bond method and know that you have that as a structure to connect with people genuinely and be yourself. It's so, so powerful. I love that.
Get in the room where things happen. Like these are the rooms where things happen. And if you're not there, you're going to miss the opportunity. Doesn't go away. It just goes to somebody else. So make sure you get in the room where these things happen. And that's why we created Master Network. So we created the rooms where these things happen.
I love it. So you've mentioned a little bit about your setbacks, but using those failures when you get to that dead end to fuel your growth, can you share how someone, when they're at that dead end and they're feeling hopelessness, how can they turn that around in that moment to try to turn that moment around and change that moment into a space from failure?
There's two sort of driving things for me. One is it's the concept really that, in fact, and I have to keep reminding myself, like there's no mastery here. I'm in mastery, but I haven't mastered. One of them is a great book. I would highly encourage Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who I've got to meet and become close with. It awesome. It's called The Gap and the Gain. Great book. And so I've just recently started, because we still hit these roadblocks all the time. In fact, I try to hit more of them. Some people describe it as a ceiling, right? And he's writing a new book, and one of the things he talks about, and I just put it in my new book as well, is that we try to break through these ceilings, right? And what he says is that it's more about raising your standard, raising the floor. Your floor is the standards that you live by. It's about raising the floor, not breaking through the ceiling. Because as you raise your floor, meaning what are the standards I live by? Raise my standards. What do I got to let go of? So when I hit these roadblocks, I often have to self-assess and look back and say, okay, look how far I've come. Because it's really easy when we're living in the gap to say, well, here's my goal and I didn't meet it. And I had this roadblock or whatever, and we live in this gap. Like, oh, friends of mine who started their business, they're further ahead, or people my age are further ahead. That's living in the gap. What Dr. Benjamin Hardy talks about is living in the gain, which is looking back to see how far you've come. So one of the things that I noticed he does, and I started doing was I do a monthly recap. Here's my goals. Here's what I did. Here's what I accomplished. Here's how I frame it. And then here's my next month's goals. I just started doing this. And what's fascinating about it is it makes me reflective. And as I did it, I went to Jordan, my business partner, and I was like, dude, do you realize how much we did last month? Because we were both feeling like we still didn't hit every goal that we wanted, right? But look how far we came. So that's number one. And number two is the very thing I just said, which is surrounding yourself with people who you can be vulnerable with. You can have, like, one of the things that I try to do is, like, I do this with my kids too. Like, you can be upset, you can vent, you can kick and scream, fine, whatever. You can do it for one day and then move on. Like, I'll give you the space to do it for one day, but you don't get to linger in this for a month. You don't get to linger in this for a week. You got 24 hours and then we're moving forward, right? It's like sports. You lost a game, we'll learn from it for 24 hours and then we got the next opponent, we're going to move forward. So surrounding yourself with those people that say, Chaz, it's all right. What did we learn from this? What are we going to do? Where are we going? What's the plan? Those two things have been super helpful. Living in the gain, not in the gap, and then surrounding myself with people that kind of lift me up and support me when I'm stuck, because we all need it. We all need it.
So good. Chaz, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. We've just learned that success it's not just what we do, but it's about doing the right things, even learning from what we might call the wrong things, but doing things in order with the right people. And you've shown us how relationships are just the heart of everything in business and in life. Thank you for that. And thank you for Master Networks. It's a great place to connect with other people who are looking to succeed. You know, whenever I first learned about the mission statement of Master Networks, it was so powerful for me because we had this concept in church where we say no rock stars allowed. And what that means in that space is we want to be people who are towel over the arm in service to others. And that was the heart of how I wanted to build my business, the Mindset School, from the start. And it really is the heart of Master Networks as well. Put your towel over your arm, serve other people well, and your business will take care of itself in the process. And it's a powerful way to live.
So good. Yeah, I would just encourage people who are listening to this to plug in further to podcasts like this, because probably just a parting piece of advice is that I found that even when people achieve success in their business, however you define it, right, that your success sometimes takes you to a level your personal development cannot sustain you at long term. So if you're not growing as an individual and growing those relationships, it doesn't matter the level of success you'll achieve, because at some point you'll self-sabotage, you'll put the wrong people around you, whatever it might be. So you never can outpace long-term that personal development. So keep plugging into podcasts like this and your amazing coaching and training, because that's what's going to take you to the next level. It's that mindset and then the who you surround yourself with.
Thank you, Chaz. I'm so honored to have you here today. Your book, The 5+1, will be in the show notes. And also, I just encourage you, if you're listening, get connected with Master Networks. I'll have a link there. It's not just in person, but there's an online space as well. If there's not yet one in your community, there's also opportunities to start one. So there's so many ways that you can connect with other people. So any last parting words you would like to leave us with, Chaz?
Yeah, I would just say, like, take action. Come join us. Come be part of a community. Surround yourself. A lot of people even describe it, whether you're a faith person or not, it's like business church, right? They're like, come check us out. Come be part of this group. We have chapters launching everywhere in this country, actually worldwide right now. And so we'd love to have you to be a part of it. Come surround yourself. And we just had a young mother who started her own travel agency business. She's like, I've never even started a business, never been a part of it or anything. And she is now getting so much business, so much connection. She then had knee surgery and it didn't go so great. And people were calling her at the hospital, checking in on her. She's like, I mean, I'm blown away just on a small monthly fee to be part of this. And I have this whole family around. So if you don't need to be alone. And it's loneliness in business that is really challenging. And there's no need to be alone when there's places like Master Networks.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you.
And I am so excited to share this with the world.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today on our journey towards Christian authenticity and a Christ-centered mindset. Remember, the masks that we wear not only hide our true selves, but also keep us held back, living small in life, in business, and in relationships. As we wrap up, I invite you to take a crucial step towards your breakthrough. I created the Breakthrough Quiz just for you. Head over to themindsetSchool.net/quiz and dive in to discover a guide to move you closer to your authentic self and renewing your mind God's way. Until next time, let's be real, okay?